Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Our goal today is pretty straightforward. We've got a stack of sources here,
hmm
specifically recent articles from CoinMarketCap contributors, and we're basically going to pull out the key bits of knowledge and insight for you.
That's the plan. Think of these articles as like different snapshots, different angles on what's actually happening in crypto right now.
Right.
They give us some solid examples of what people are doing, what signals are out there.
And we've got one main headline article that really caught our eye to start us off, but we'll be pulling from a few others too. The mission really is just to cut through the noise, help you see what's significant in these sources
Yeah,
quickly and clearly.
let's do it.
So let's jump right in. We start with this quite interesting headline about a Norwegian brokerage firm, K33.
Oh, yes.
The key nugget here, the big takeaway from this specific article, they're committing $6.2 million specifically to a Bitcoin Treasury strategy.
Right.
Now, putting Bitcoin on a company's balance sheet, that's not totally brand new, but a brokerage firm doing this, making a direct, pretty sizable commitment.
Yeah, it's fascinating seeing companies actively making these kinds of strategic choices, as part of their financial planning. $6.2 million, like you said, it's not pocket change for a brokerage.
Definitely not.
And it wasn't the only example of this sort of corporate strategy we found in the sources either.
Yes, you're thinking of the Metaplanet article. That one was structured differently, wasn't it?
Totally different approach. They issued, get this, $21 million in zero-interest bonds.
Zero interest.
And the source was clear, the specific purpose, buying Bitcoin.
So they're essentially borrowing money for free to buy Bitcoin.
Exactly. And the article mentioned Evo Fund snapped up all those bonds. So you've got K33 buying directly, putting it on the balance sheet.
Right.
And then Metaplanet uses this debt mechanism to boost their corporate Bitcoin holdings. It still increases their exposure, strengthens that balance sheet position in Bitcoin, but yeah, a totally different financial structure.
It really shows the different ways companies are figuring out how to integrate digital assets.
Yeah, it highlights that variety. Definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Okay, great point. So we're seeing these corporate balance sheet strategies playing out based on these articles. Let's shift gears a bit. These sources also gave us glimpses into specific projects, broader market signals. What else kind of stood out there?
Well, connecting that to the bigger picture, yeah, we saw reports on project-level stuff and market indicators, like KASPA, KAS.
KASPA, right.
The source mentioned its supply lockup is getting close to 70%.
70% supply lockup.
Okay.
For maybe folks less deep in the weeds, what does the article suggest that actually means for KAS?
Well, it points towards, signs of steady accumulation.
Yeah.
Strong holding conviction. When that much of a coin's potential supply is locked up, like it can't easily be sold, maybe it's staked, or in long-term wallets, it just creates scarcity. So the article suggests this reduces selling pressure, and it indicates people are holding for the long haul, which, can be seen as a bullish signal for potential price stability, growth.
So it's not just a raw number, it's telling a story about the investor base, maybe the potential for supply squeezes if demand picks up. Interesting.
Exactly.
What about stablecoins? I think Ripple's RLUSD came up.
It did, yeah. The source highlighted its expansion. It got listed on Euler Finance.
Okay.
And according to the article, the goal there is pretty explicit. Diversify the lending and borrowing options within DeFi by bringing RLUSD into the mix.
Makes sense. Diversification in DeFi with a new stablecoin, especially as that whole ecosystem grows. Now, there was one article we looked at that had quite a few different signals kind of packed together.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It mentioned SUI and SOL gaining traction, but then it immediately pivoted to BlockDAG.
Yes. That article made some pretty bold claims, focusing heavily on BlockDAG's presale activity.
And the claim from the source was specifically that BlockDAG's potential, its explosive potential, outpaces SUI and SOL. Where were the numbers they used there?
Yeah, the article went into detail. A $273 million presale figure claimed by the project itself.
Wow.
And it also cited $10 million in presale growth happening in just 7 days as part of that bigger number. The source really framed BlockDAG's whole narrative around building for, quote, real adoption, developer traction, buyer momentum, using these presale numbers as the key proof points.
$273 million is a massive pre-sale number. It's interesting how the article uses that specific metric to draw a comparison with established players like SUI and SOL.
Right.
And didn't that same article also mention, almost like side note, some XRP analyst views predicting huge gains and something about a surge in Binance whale activity?
It did, yeah. It sort of bundled together different types of market chatter, specific project pre-sale claims, analyst predictions for coins like XRP, and then on-chain data like whale movements.
Huh.
It just shows how varied the reported signals can be, all in one place.
Definitely. Okay, and then shifting again, this time maybe more towards core infrastructure. The sources also touched on Ethereum, ETH.
Right, the upcoming Pectra upgrade for Ethereum. The article described it as a really major technical event, called it the biggest code update since the merge, actually.
The biggest since the merge. That's quite a statement. What does the source say it involves?
Well, it's described as basically combining two key updates, Prague and Electra, into one big release. The specifics are obviously super technical, but just the scope being compared to the merge.
Yeah.
It suggests it's expected to bring pretty substantial changes or improvements to the network's function, maybe its architecture.
Yeah.
Anytime a core protocol goes through an upgrade that big, it's, a key development for everything built on top.
Absolutely. So, okay, if we kind of step back now and try to pull together the findings from all these different data points,
Yeah.
what picture emerges from these sources? Well, we're seeing these distinct layers of activity being reported on right now, right?
Yeah.
You've got companies like K33 and Metaplanet making these direct corporate balance sheet moves with Bitcoin. That shows institutional corporate adoption strategy.
Layer 1.
Then you have these project-specific developments and market signals, things like the supply dynamics in Caspa, the stablecoin expansion with RLUSD.
The pre-sale claims and reported activity around BlockDAG, SUI, SOL, XRP whale activity.
Exactly. All that falls into sort of a project and market signal layer. And then finally, you have the core protocol upgrades like Ethereum's Pectra hitting that foundational layer of the whole ecosystem.
It really is like looking at the market through, several different lenses at the same time,
Yeah.
based purely on what these contributors chose to write about. You've got balance sheets, project metrics, speculative buzz, fundamental tech changes.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think these sources really offer some concrete recent examples of moves happening in the space.
We've seen companies adding Bitcoin to their treasuries, using different methods. We've seen specific project milestones and signals being reported on, and these major network infrastructure upgrades coming down the pike.
Yeah, this deep dive helps you see these different types of activity that have been reported lately. It should give you maybe a more rounded view of what's going on beyond just staring at price charts.
Right.
Purely based on the info in these articles, you see strategic corporate stuff, specific project dynamics, and those foundational tech improvements all happening, concurrently.
Yeah, it's not just about the price number. It's about the why, the strategies, the tech developments, the specific project stories that these sources decided were important to highlight.
Exactly.
And that wraps up our deep dive into these particular sources for today. We covered those corporate Bitcoin strategies, K33, Metaplanet.
The altcoin signals, Caspa's lockup, RLUSD expanding, the buzz around SUI, SOL, BlockDAG.
Right. And that key network upgrade for Ethereum, Pectra.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on as you navigate all this. These sources, they show vastly different reasons for interest.
Right.
And different metrics.
Totally done.
You've got strategic corporate adoption, fundamental tech upgrades, supply dynamics, pre-sale numbers. How do you personally weigh and connect these really varied signals when you're trying to build your own understanding of the whole landscape?
That's a great question to consider, something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.